Hello people of the Spicy Webs, I'm Mr. Spork and these are Mr. Spork's hands. I think pepper jelly got a bad rap back in the 70s when all the rage was to put blobs of it on top of cream cheese and serve it as chic cocktail party appetizers. Well, you know what? The stuff is useful in a lot of other places. I put it on top of my Asian sandwiches. My Vietnamese banh mi makes really good eating when you put just a tiny thin layer of the stuff there. If I'm going to saute carrots, for example, I put a few spoonfuls in with the pan and it melts back down and coats them perfectly. Just plenty of places to put it and lots of other permutations to make. You can use all kinds of flavorings, different chilies, so on and so forth. But the ratio stays the same pretty much no matter where you go. I use 250 milliliters of liquid, 200 grams of sugar. Those are about equal volumes. It's about a cup of each. And to thicken that much, I'm going to use fruit pectin, usually about 60 grams in a packet, and 30 grams, half a packet, will thicken that measure perfectly well. So all you got to do is take your flavor of choice. Today I'm going to use some habaneros, and because I'm insane, I leave the ribs in. I'm going to put these into my super handy dandy blender. I'm going in with about 3/4 of a cup, right around 150 milliliters of plain white vinegar. I've tried other more elaborate vinegars, and quite frankly, for this particular flavor, the clean white vinegar works better. And I'm going to balance out the bottom, the rest of that 250 milliliters with lemon juice. So I've got 250 milliliters of lemon total, excuse me, 250 milliliters of liquid total. And I'm going to go blend this down. We're going to get the sea salt and sugar into the mix once we go onto the heat with it. So out of my blender comes that chili vinegar lemon mix. That's the flavor component of it. We got to get the sugar in there. Again, that's about 200 grams or another cup. In goes my 30 grams of pectin. And we want to get just a tiny little bit of salt in there to bring out the other flavors. Probably this is a shy half teaspoon going in there. And I'm going to bring it up to temperature, stir to whisk all of that in. Stir it every so often just to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom. But you want to bring this up to full boil because that's what activates the pectin. The pectin will not work. I don't know exactly the temperature. I think it's about 175. But you've got to get it up to right at a boil to start it for sure. But to save a lot of the delicate flavor, don't boil it for very long. Get it to boiling and then stop. Maybe simmer it down at a lower temperature for just a little bit longer to bring the flavors together. But it doesn't take much. That's pretty much the whole thing. As this comes up to temperature, you know, I said earlier you could use all kinds of different flavors. You can use garlic in there if you want. You can use other chilies. You can use dried chilies like these Thai chilies. If you've got a fresh horseradish plant, you could even add some horseradish into it. You can use spices, things like cumin. That works really well. Or you can even start with other jams and jellies like, say, a raspberry flavor and use a portion of that to get some fruit flavors in there. Really, the combinations are infinite. If you just remember that ratio, basically a cup of sugar, a cup of liquid, and your flavors to 30 grams of pectin. Let this boil, pour it off, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's done. After about 30 or 45 seconds of boiling to activate that pectin, you can say I poured it off into my sterilized glass jars. Do remember that we're not canning process here. This is not for dry shelf storage. This needs to stay in your fridge. I use these little plastic lids because they seal nice and tight. This batch made, well, that's half a pint and then some. You can tell that it's already kind of starting to set up on the spoon there. I like the smaller batches better because that way I can do more experimentations and more flavor permutations, and you can see how fast it was. So there's no reason to make big horkin' batches of the stuff. If you don't like that foam that's forming on the top, you get a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the chilies you use. Don't worry, you can certainly skim that off, but it is just aesthetics. There's no harm in it. There's no bitter taste in it. It's just a little bit fuzzy. So I do hope you go try to make a batch of this stuff. I appreciate you liking and tweety thumb upping and Facebooking and Instagramming and all that other crazy stuff. If you don't remember the recipe, please just go up to my blog and click on that link. You will find it with a search. And as always, I do appreciate you subscribing to the channel because that's what lets me keep doing this for you. Until next time, I'm Mr. Spork. These are Mr. Spork's hands. Now go get some spicy sweetness into your life.